Welcome back, True Crime Army. I am your host, Margot, and this is Military Murder, a show where I discuss true crime cases involving military members and veterans. But don't worry, you don't have to know anything about the military to listen. Hi, everyone. I hope that everyone is doing well as the summer winds down. Before we get into today's case, I want to take a moment to address something from last week's episode. As you may recall, I re-released a Patreon episode covering the Luby's massacre, which I originally recorded nearly 3 years ago. Unfortunately, I realized after it was published that I mispronounced Luby's, calling it Lubby's throughout the entire episode. I want to sincerely apologize for that. It was an honest mistake, but I know how important it is to get those details right, especially when covering a tragedy that claimed so many lives. I never intended any disrespect to the victims, their families, or anyone connected to the case, and I truly am sorry. Thank you to everyone who kindly pointed it out, and thank you as always for extending me grace when I inevitably butcher a word or 10. Now, with that, let's move into today's case. The case that I am covering today has stayed with me since the summer of 2023. I first covered it on social media as the investigation was unfolding, and later I included it in one of my military headlines episodes. Now that the case has finally worked its way through the court system, I wanted to revisit it from the beginning and walk through everything that we know. Join me today as I discuss the tragic story of Saria Barney Hildabrand. It's a tragedy out of Alaska. Now, let's dig in.
Military murder is an independent project and is not endorsed by the Department of Defense or any military component. The views expressed are those of the host. The content of this podcast is not meant to be legal or medical advice. Warning, this episode contains graphic details of murder and is not suitable for young listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
I'll never forget the first time I saw Saria Hildabrand. I had opened up my Facebook app and immediately saw her face and name on a missing persons poster that was being circulated online. She was a member of the National Guard, and with that post, I shared it online and began to follow the case. So, how did it all begin? On Monday, August 7th, 2023, the Anchorage Police Department asked the public to help find a 21-year-old woman named Saria Hildabrand. Police said that she had last been seen at about 10 o'clock the previous morning near Mockingbird Drive and Alpenhorn Avenue. This was a residential pocket of Midtown Anchorage. Saria was 5 foot 8 inches tall, weighed about 160 pounds. She had brown hair and green eyes. Investigators believe that she had been heading to work wearing a black t-shirt, black jeans, and black shoes, and carrying her purse. The Anchorage PD's initial request for help was sparse. If you knew or saw anything in relation to Saria, call dispatch. Of course, immediately, online speculation about what could have happened to Saria ran rampant. And then, initial reports about what Saria's husband said happened began to circulate. But the interesting thing about this case was that Zarrius Hildabrand wasn't the one who reported Saria missing. It was Saria's best friend, Marie Wentz. She was the one that reported Saria missing. Now, I will tell you more about Marie's involvement a little later. In any event, Zarrius Hildabrand told authorities that on Saturday night, he and Saria had been out with friends to celebrate his 21st birthday. When they woke up the next morning, Saria didn't feel well enough to drive to work, and she was working at the Bread and Brew Alaska. Since the Bread and Brew was only a mile away, she decided to walk, and she left their apartment at around 10 a.m. She took her purse and wallet, but surprisingly, she left her phone behind. Later in the early evening, when Zarrius went to pick up Saria at work, he learned that Saria never reported for her shift that day. There was one thing about Zarrius' story that troubled many people, but it especially troubled Saria's family. Saria's aunt, Brittany Monson, was like, "What? Saria without her phone? Are you kidding me?" Another close Utah friend would say bluntly, "That girl never put her phone down." In addition to the phone situation being suspect, her family knew Saria would never abandon a work commitment. Come hell or high water, Saria would show up for work no matter what. As one can imagine, Saria's mother, Meredith, was distraught to learn that her daughter was somehow missing. She felt helpless from her home in Utah, so she immediately booked a flight to Alaska to search for her. She arrived in Alaska on Tuesday, but she didn't go alone. Other relatives followed, including Saria's brother and her aunt and uncle. They went first to the police, and then they linked up with Zarrius and went straight into the woods, trails, parks, and neighborhoods, between Saria's apartment and the restaurant where she worked. Meredith later testified that there were certain areas where Zarrius would tell her that they probably didn't have to search there, but she would later return to search those exact areas because she just felt that something was off. The search for Saria expanded into University Lake Park, a place where Saria often walked her dog. At the time, family members posted flyers, friends shared them online, soldiers, police officers, search teams, scent dogs, and eventually a drone joined the effort. As I mentioned, Zarrius participated as well. He posted his wife's missing person flyer on Facebook, he spoke with family members, and searched alongside Meredith. In the public story unfolding that week, he was the young military husband waiting for his wife to come home. But online, whoa! As I mentioned, I first learned about this case on Facebook while it was still a breaking news story. And at the time, Zarrius had shared an updated flyer on Facebook with an urgent message that read, quote, "Please share and repost," end quote. Beneath the post, as a comment, another user pressed Zarrius about his online activity. Zarrius responded with a touch of sarcasm, quote, "A+ for the effort," end quote. And then he went on to explain that he had spent more than 12 hours without access to a phone or any other device. Then he said that once he regained access, he used his devices to exchange information about Saria's disappearance. If he knew where his wife was, Zarrius insisted the people investigating the case would already know. He then asked the commenter to contribute something positive or provide information about Saria, before closing with a snarky yet polite, quote, "Thank you and have a wonderful evening," end quote. At that stage, the Facebook exchange could be interpreted in more than one way. Zarrius could just be a frightened husband losing patience with an online troll, or Zarrius' response could be viewed as defensiveness under growing public scrutiny. At that time, Saria was still missing, and no one reading the Facebook exchange yet knew how dramatically the case was about to change. Meanwhile, in the background of everything that was going on, Saria's family spoke to the local news. They reiterated that Saria's disappearance was abnormal, and they promised that the army of people gathering in Alaska would not stop until the family had answers. By Wednesday, August 9th, the police presence around the Hildabrand's apartment complex increased even more. At 12:52 that afternoon, Anchorage police announced that officers and the department's crime scene team were working an ongoing investigation at a residence on the 5200 block of Mockingbird Drive. Police asked the public to avoid the area and warned that a drone might be in use. Meanwhile, the on-foot search continued. People walked wooded corridors and checked the possible routes between the apartment and Bread and Brew. On Thursday, roughly 40 members of Saria's Alaska Army National Guard unit helped look for one of their own. Reporters photographed family members taking a short rest between searches and photographed the flyers posted at University Lake Park. Publicly, the question remained, where had Saria gone? Then, by late Thursday, that question changed. On Thursday, August 10th at 2:31 p.m., police announced activity in the 1400 block of Alpenhorn Avenue near the apartment complex. Once again, the crime scene team was responding. And once again, police said that a drone might be deployed. And as it turned out, that police drone was working overtime in Saria's case. During the search, an officer operating the police drone noticed a pillow near a storm drain along a nearby trail. Officers headed toward the drain to investigate, and when they opened the drain, they found bedding floating above 2 feet of water. A search beneath the bedding and the surface of the water revealed human remains. The remains were later identified as Saria Hildabrand, and her cause of death appeared to be a single gunshot wound above her left temple. At 9:30 a.m. the following day, Friday morning, Anchorage police changed the public classification of Saria's disappearance into a homicide investigation. In the same update, police said that Saria's 21-year-old husband, Zarrius Hildabrand, had been taken into custody on suspicion of first-degree murder, second-degree murder, and tampering with physical evidence. And that arrest transformed every image from the previous days. During one of the initial hearings, Meredith, Saria's mother, told the judge that Zarrius had been beside her searching for her daughter. Meanwhile, he knew she was dead and exactly where he had placed her. She said he presented himself as a concerned husband and lied to her face repeatedly. But an arrest is an accusation, not a verdict. The first charging document did not identify a motive, and the physical evidence had not yet been tested in open court. What it did provide was a timeline, one in which the story that Zarrius told investigators appeared to collide again and again with records that could be fact-checked. I can't believe that school is right around the corner. But guess what? This year, I am feeling more prepared to take on the school year, and I think it's because I added the Skylight calendar to my family routine. Honestly, I realized that prior to my Skylight calendar arriving, the family command center was completely in my head. It was either in my head or on a Post-it note or on some sort of list somewhere in the house. But now, everything lives in one place, the Skylight calendar. Everything including my personal schedule, the kids' calendar, their routines and chores. And that right there, that's my girls' favorite feature. Yeah, it's called the Chores and Reward System. And they actually get excited to check off their routines because they can see what they've accomplished. It's helping them build independence, and I don't have to remind everyone 100 times what they have to do for the day. I also love that it doesn't just look like a random calendar. When it's not displaying your schedule, it doubles as a beautiful digital picture frame that you can display pictures on and even videos. At the end of the day, Skylight Calendar is designed to bring families together for more time. And that's what it's done for us. I definitely recommend checking it out. Plus, if in 4 months you're not 100% thrilled with your purchase, you can return it for a full refund. A full refund, no questions asked. Families are better when they're working together. And right now, Skylight is offering my listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendar by visiting myskylight.com/MMP. Go to myskylight.com/MMP for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That is myskylight.com/MMP. So what exactly did Zarrius tell the police anyway? After Saria was reported missing that Monday, police knocked on Zarrius' door to take his report. Zarrius told police that he and Saria had spent Saturday night, August 5th, celebrating his 21st birthday with friends. The group first went to a restaurant, then they went to Dave & Buster's, they visited a bar, and the couple returned home at about 2 in the morning. Zarrius said that Saria left for work at around 10 that morning without her phone. For the rest of the day, he kind of just lounged around the house, and then later, when it was time to pick up Saria, he was told she never reported to work. Zarrius' timeline was a little suspect because he discovered that Saria hadn't reported for work early evening on Sunday, but she hadn't been reported missing until Monday afternoon. When asked why he waited so long, he said that he figured he might be able to find her and discover that this was all just a giant misunderstanding. He said he did call friends, relatives, hospitals, jails, and even drove around looking for Saria. While authorities were at the apartment, they asked for permission to look around, and Zarrius allowed them to browse. Immediately, police noticed that the only bed in the apartment didn't have sheets on it. It only had a mattress pad on. Police asked if they could look under the bed, and Zarrius said no because he had embarrassing items under the bed. Of course, police were like, red flag, red flag. Side note, they later returned with a search warrant, but for now, they were not allowed to search. So, while the missing person search was ongoing, authorities were searching for other things behind the scene. And that's when they discovered that a 911 call had come in from the Hildabrand's apartment complex from a neighbor. At about 2:45 a.m. on Sunday morning, a resident of the Hildabrand apartment complex called 911 to report that they heard a single gunshot come from somewhere in the complex. Authorities asked if they knew where. Was it from the courtyard, the parking lot, another apartment? The man couldn't give further details except that he said it sounded like it came from the courtyard. But he did say he knew without a shadow of a doubt that a gun had gone off. Authorities would respond to that area, but finding nothing out of the ordinary, they left. When investigators followed up with Saria's employer, Bread and Brew, they learned that at 10:45 a.m., they received a message from Saria's phone saying she wouldn't be coming in that day. Later, authorities would confront Zarrius with this information, asking, listen, if the phone was still at the house at 10:45 a.m., but you said Saria left at 10 a.m., did you send those messages to Saria's employer? Well, Zarrius denied sending that message, and he couldn't explain what happened or how that message was sent. By that point, authorities had interviewed Saria's best friend, Marie. and she told authorities that Saria wasn't even planning on going to work on Sunday. So the entire thing was weird. If she wasn't planning to go to work, why would she leave the house? And what about Zarrius's lazy Sunday? Authorities discovered that Zarrius did not, in fact, have a lazy Sunday after all. In fact, store surveillance footage showed that Zarrius had quite a busy Sunday. At 12:26 p.m., surveillance video showed Zarrius at Fred Meyer purchasing lemon lime Gatorade Zero, marinara sauce, and a new set of bed sheets. He returned to the store at about 6:12 p.m. and purchased hydrogen peroxide, a spray bottle, cleaner, deodorant, and cotton swabs. At approximately 10 that night, he went back to Fred Meyer a third time, and that's when he purchased an energy drink and a mattress pad. During the final visit, he wore different clothing than he had earlier in the day. He also went to Lowe's and purchased a 96-gallon wheeled trash can. By the way, every time he went to Fred Meyer's, which is a grocery store, he used his customer phone number. You know, the one that you use to get points and rewards? Yeah, so not only did he also use like his debit card or his credit card, but every single time he made a purchase at Fred Meyer, that purchase was linked back to his account with his membership customer rewards number or whatever. Okay, remember how Zarrius initially gave permission to search his apartment, but didn't let them search under the bed or under the mattress, or really anywhere outside of what the naked eye could see? Well, when the crime scene team returned to search with a warrant, what they found beneath the mattress pad changed everything. According to the sworn complaint, the mattress was saturated with human blood. The blood had soaked through to the carpet and wooden bed frame below. Investigators reported additional traces of blood in the bathroom, on the floor, and in the bathtub, locations that, taken together, suggested that someone had tried to clean the apartment. Officers recovered 2 handguns at the apartment. 1 magazine was short a round. Elsewhere in the neighborhood, police located a large rolling trash can matching the one that Zarrius purchased at Lowe's. It was in the back of a truck parked along Alpenhorn Avenue, and investigators saw what appeared to be blood inside of it. The trail beside that area where the garbage can had been discovered led toward the storm drain, where the drone later found Saria. After Saria's body was discovered, police arrested Zarrius. His bail was set at $500,000. And then, on August 18th, an Anchorage grand jury indicted him on 1 count of first-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree murder, and 2 counts of tampering with physical evidence. The court record would eventually reduce this case to times, stains, trajectories, and digital extractions. But before I continue with what happened after Saria's death, let's talk about her life. Saria Barney was raised in Utah, and her mother said that the two had always been close. Meredith had become a mother at 18, and she described herself and Saria as having grown up together. Friends remembered Saria as outgoing, loyal, funny, adventurous, and intensely hardworking. Saria enlisted in the Utah Army National Guard in May of 2021. Her military specialty was field artillery, firefinder, radar operator. And as happens with a lot of military people, Saria met Zarrius Hildabrand during military training in the summer of 2022. Zarrius was active duty, he was from Kentucky, and he himself joined the Army in September of 2021. He was assigned to Alaska after his training in 2022 and worked as a cannon crew member with the 2nd Infantry Brigade Combat Team. During their training, they began dating, and by December of 2022, the pair was married. However, Zarrius went to Alaska first, and Saria would eventually move to be with him in January of 2023. From the outside looking in, friends and relatives said that the newlyweds appeared happy. Saria was very excited about Alaska, and she was especially excited about the possibility of one day seeing the Northern Lights. Once she relocated to be with her husband, she found a job at Bread and Brew and spent time at University Lake Park with her dog, the same park where her missing flyers would later be posted. By April of 2023, Saria transferred into the Alaska Army National Guard. At the time, she was a specialist assigned to Headquarters and Headquarters Company, 1st Battalion, 297th Infantry Regiment, and she had retrained as a 68W combat medic. The Guard's statement after her death emphasized the oath that she had taken to serve the state and nation. She was also planning to enroll in college courses that fall, using her military service to move toward a career in medicine. The coworkers who knew Saria during those final months described her as positive, helpful, and reliable. Saria's funeral was held in Mount Pleasant, Utah on August 25, 2023, with full military honors. Back in Anchorage, friends, soldiers, and community members gathered at University Lake Dog Park to remember Saria. By then, the criminal case had begun the slow movement through discovery, expert review, motion practice, and repeated hearings that would postpone a jury's consideration for nearly 3 years. I can't believe that school is right around the corner. But guess what? This year, I am feeling more prepared to take on the school year, and I think it's because I added the Skylight calendar to my family routine. Honestly, I realized that prior to my Skylight calendar arriving, the family command center was completely in my head. It was either in my head or on a Post-it note or on some sort of list somewhere in the house. But now, everything lives in one place, the Skylight calendar. Everything including my personal schedule, the kids' calendar, their routines and chores. And that right there, that's my girls' favorite feature. Yeah, it's called the Chores and Reward System. And they actually get excited to check off their routines because they can see what they've accomplished. It's helping them build independence, and I don't have to remind everyone 100 times what they have to do for the day. I also love that it doesn't just look like a random calendar. When it's not displaying your schedule, it doubles as a beautiful digital picture frame that you can display pictures on and even videos. At the end of the day, Skylight Calendar is designed to bring families together for more time. And that's what it's done for us. I definitely recommend checking it out. Plus, if in 4 months you're not 100% thrilled with your purchase, you can return it for a full refund. A full refund, no questions asked. Families are better when they're working together. And right now, Skylight is offering my listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendar by visiting myskylight.com/MMP. Go to myskylight.com/MMP for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That is myskylight.com/MMP. Jury selection in the Zarrius Hildabrand case began in Anchorage in June of 2026. Opening statements followed on June 10th, and that's where prosecutors Kayla Hurley and Brittany Dunlop told jurors that Saria had discovered explicit conversations between her husband and another woman after the couple came home from celebrating his 21st birthday. The defense, led by attorney Lacey Brewster, agreed that Zarrius had concealed Saria's body and cleaned the apartment, but said those acts followed a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The case, Brewster told the jury, was tragic, but it was not murder. Now, it's important to realize that this early concession during opening statements narrowed the dispute. The defense did not ask jurors to decide whether Zarrius had purchased the cleaning supplies, moved Saria's body, hidden it in the storm drain, sent messages from her phone, or lied about her walk to work. The central question for the jury was what happened before the cover-up. The prosecution and the defense teed up the critical question for jurors up front. Had Zarrius shot Saria and then staged it as a disappearance? Or had Saria shot herself, as the defense maintained, and Zarrius only disposed of her body in a panic? Clearly, from the beginning, we were all shocked when opening statements happened because I personally was not expecting them to basically turn this into a she committed suicide, he just covered up. But they laid it all out up front in opening statements. Now, from the beginning, we all expected with this bombshell that the defense threw in opening that Zarrius would take the stand. But remember, he's not required to, so we just waited with bated breath. In the meantime, the state began presenting their case with the people who knew Saria and the first version of events. Saria's mother and former coworkers described her disposition and plans, saying that she was full of life, she wanted to go to college, she would never kill herself. Then they introduced dispatch recordings who captured Zarrius telling authorities during the search that Saria was not suicidal and had no mental health issue that concerned him. Coworkers introduced the text messages that they received from Saria and described her as dependable and happy and not one to miss work. On cross-examination, the defense emphasized with almost everyone that none of those witnesses had been inside the apartment when the gun fired. Friends then reconstructed Zarrius' 21st birthday celebration. Multiple witnesses said that Zarrius had become extremely intoxicated. One witness recalled Saria having to help Zarrius walk. Another witness described that Zarrius was sufficiently intoxicated that they wouldn't allow him to go into the Gaslight Lounge afterwards. Marie Wentz was Saria's best friend from Alaska, and her testimony was heartbreaking. She testified that she went out with Saria and Zarrius on his 21st birthday. While they were at Dave & Buster's, Saria really wanted to win this 3-foot-tall stuffed pickle Rick toy, which she later successfully won. Sadly, the jury would see pictures of Saria and Zarrius with full-blown smiles with this larger-than-life pickle. Marie explained that when Zarrius was turned away from the Gaslight Lounge because he was too drunk, Marie Ubered back with the couple where she remembered Zarrius throwing up. When the Uber arrived at the Hildabrand's apartment complex, Zarrius and Saria got out and walked inside. That was the last time that Marie saw Saria. Interestingly, Marie and Saria talked, or at minimum texted/Snapchatted with each other every single day. Marie told the jury that after waking up later that morning, she saw a missed call from Saria at 2:40 a.m. Later that morning, Marie sent Saria a Snapchat asking how Zarrius was feeling. Marie received a picture of Zarrius' face with a thumbs-up emoji. Zarrius then told Marie that Saria had left her phone at home after leaving for work at 10 a.m. Marie thought that was odd because Saria was never without her phone, and on top of that, Saria had told her she was calling out of work that day. For the remainder of the day, Marie sent Saria various messages that she never received a response for. On Monday, August 7th, Marie told the jury that she was at work when she got a call from Saria's phone, but it wasn't Saria, it was Zarrius. He told her that Saria was missing and he hadn't seen her since 10 a.m. the prior morning. Saria couldn't talk, but after work, she went straight to the Hildabrand apartment. There, she grilled Zarrius asking if he had searched for Saria, called hospitals, called the police, and when she learned that Zarrius hadn't reported Saria missing, at 5:32 p.m., she called 911 herself from her phone and put the phone on speaker to allow Zarrius to answer their questions. During the following days, Marie was the one who encouraged Zarrius to post Saria's missing persons poster on social media. She did feel that he was way too calm under the circumstances, and she found it suspicious when he asked her what of Saria's possessions he should return to her family. Marie thought that it was premature considering they hadn't found anything about her and that she was hoping that they would find her alive, but he was acting like they weren't going to find her alive. First Sergeant Toby Howry testified about the day after Saria disappeared. He said he visited Zarrius at his apartment and that Zarrius began to cry uncontrollably. That's when Zarrius told him he was starting to remember more about the night than what he had told police. After the arrest, the first sergeant visited Zarrius in jail. According to the first sergeant, Zarrius expressed hope that the room was not recording because, quote, "I did what I did," end quote. The first sergeant was taken aback by the empty delivery of that sentence, "I did what I did," and said that when he looked back at Zarrius, Zarrius had a weird grin on his face. The comment was concerning enough that the first sergeant shared it with his chain of command. On cross-examination, the defense established that no third person had been present to verify this account of what Zarrius did or the look on his face. The prosecution also brought in store employees and surveillance footage that placed the Sunday purchases before the jury: bedding, peroxide, a spray bottle, cleaner, a mattress pad, and the enormous wheeled trash can. Meanwhile, the jury saw Zarrius just calmly walking through the store 3 separate times, rolling the giant trash can through the store. The jury also heard from the neighbor who called 911 to report hearing a gunshot. This neighbor took the stand and he described that on August 6th at around 2:40 a.m., he had been watching TV when he heard a gunshot. He called 911 and reported the sound as a 9mm gun fired right next to his window. He thought it originated in the middle of the courtyard, but never looked out the window for fear of his own safety. But that wasn't all that this neighbor testified to. He said that on Tuesday, August 8th, he had just finished up an interview with the detectives when Zarrius approached him in the apartment complex courtyard. Mind you, this neighbor said he didn't know Zarrius. But Zarrius asked him what he had been talking to detectives about. The neighbor told him that he had called a gunshot in early Sunday morning, and the neighbor testified that as soon as those words came out of his mouth, Zarrius's body language became tense and alert. Zarrius dug in and asked if detectives had done any research on that, and the neighbor said he didn't know. Feeling uneasy about the conversation and not even knowing who Zarrius Hildabrand was, the neighbor escaped the interaction as quickly as he could. Police witnesses also took the stand to describe the storm drain and the condition in which Saria was found. Crime scene photographs documented the apartment, the firearms, the cleaning supplies, and the overturned mattress with the blood stain. Investigators testified that when they applied a blood detection agent inside the apartment, one officer described the result as one of the strongest reactions he had encountered. The jury also saw a handwritten note by Zarrius that he wrote during the missing person investigation. As reported by the Alaska news source, the note read in part, quote, "I'm writing this just in case what's going on with my wife becomes too much for me to handle. I've always said since we met that I couldn't live life without her, nor do I want to. Whoever finds this note, please make sure my dogs get taken care of. Please make sure that if Saria is found, rather it be dead or alive, that we be buried next to each other, please. Finally, to Saria, if you are alive and receive this news, I'll see you in the next life, honey bunny. I love you the mostest." The letter went on to say on the back, quote, "For the people working the case, I'm sorry the info I gave you wasn't the best and hopefully my wife turns up. But I'm telling you now that I have no clue what could have happened to Saria, and I truthfully can make that statement," end quote. I don't know, that's kind of a weird note, and the state presented the note as another layer of lies and staging at the hands of the man at the center of this case. But listen, the defense later used the note to support its claim that Zarrius had been overwhelmed and suicidal after finding his wife dead. Dr. Kenneth Gallagher of the Alaska State Medical Examiner's Office testified that Saria died from a penetrating gunshot wound and that he had certified the manner of death as homicide. He also testified that the wound was not a hard contact wound. Gallagher described broad stippling around the left side of her forehead and ear, indicating an intermediate but indeterminate range. He testified that the shot would have killed Saria immediately. On cross-examination, the defense stressed that Saria had no defensive wounds and that Gallagher had not test-fired the recovered gun and ammunition to reproduce the stippling pattern. And then came the digital evidence. Digital evidence supplied the state's proposed motive and its tightest timeline. Detective Morgan Paternos described a note stored on Saria's phone expressing anxiety that a partner was cheating and texting other women. Specifically, there was a note on Saria's phone stating, quote, "Doesn't post pic, take pics, doesn't act the same about us," end quote. Another part of the note said, quote, "I have constant thoughts of your cheating on me. Example, texting other girls," end quote. The defense pointed out that the detective could not independently say who wrote the note or why, even though it was on Saria's phone. More consequential, though, were screenshots of explicit conversations and photographs exchanged between Zarrius and another woman using Snapchat and Instagram. The state said Saria captured those images from Zarrius' phone as a screenshot and then sent them to herself. The screenshots arrived on Saria's phone between 2:18 and 2:24 a.m. on Sunday, August 6. Pay attention because this is important. At 2:48 a.m., police dispatch received the nearby resident's report of a gunshot. The state argued that the 30-minute interval connected discovery, confrontation, and death. Investigators also found that the screenshots that Saria had sent to herself were deleted from Saria's phone at about 11:30 later that morning. Zarrius eventually acknowledged deleting those screenshots from Saria's phone because he was embarrassed. The state also introduced evidence of Zarrius' online activity on the morning after his 21st birthday festivities. Those online searches included OnlyFans and other adult entertainment websites and nearby parks. The state rested after presenting the physical scene, the shopping trail, the witnesses, and the phone evidence. The defense presented its case in a single day on day 8, with Zarrius taking the stand. I told you. When asked why he took the stand, he said he wanted to clear up 3 years of lies. On the stand, his attorney sought to humanize him by allowing him to tell them his origin story. And with that, Zarrius told the jury that his childhood was a bit hectic. He entered foster care at age 6, and then he, along with his biological siblings, were adopted when he was 8 years old. He joined the Army when he was 19 years old, looking for direction in life, and that's where he met Saria. They married a few months later, and she moved to be with him in Alaska in 2023. Despite loving Saria, Zarrius admitted to the jury that he began an affair with a woman online, whom he communicated with via Snapchat. Saria became suspicious, and around April or May of 2023, she confronted him about the affair. He denied everything, but despite feeling guilty about what he was doing, he didn't want to just abruptly stop the online relationship, so he continued talking to the other woman. Zarrius testified that Saria had forgiven him for his infidelity, but at the time of her death, he was still, in fact, engaged in an online relationship with the other woman. With regards to his birthday celebration, Zarrius said that he had little memory of the tail end of that night because of his drinking. That night, he consumed a concoction of drinks, including multiple drinks called trash cans and AMFs. He admitted that wasn't his first rodeo drinking, and that often when he drank heavily, he'd have to check his phone the following day to re-jog his memory of what exactly had occurred the night prior. This night was no different. However, he testified that when he woke up after his birthday celebration, he was still drunk and hungover, and when he pulled back the bedding, that's when he discovered Saria dead from a single gunshot wound. I should add that during his testimony, he told the jury that he had a habit of keeping his Sig Sauer under the bed with the safety off while in the house. Well, when he found Saria dead in the bed, he said that fear took over. He was confused, and his fear was about letting everyone down. As he walked through the house trying to figure out what happened, he found the pants he had worn the night prior in the hallway, and they were soaked in urine. Additionally, he admitted that his boxers felt wet. This all added to his confusion, and rather than call 911, he decided to conceal his wife's body and clean the bedroom. He acknowledged using Saria's phone to text her coworkers, telling them that she came down with food poisoning and wouldn't be coming in that day. He did this to buy him more time. He also went through Saria's phone and deleted the incriminating messages that she had screenshotted because he was embarrassed. He then ran some errands, including getting a haircut and going to the grocery store. He even admitted at stopping by a liquor store. He testified that later that day, he placed Saria in the 96-gallon trash can, transported her to the drain, left her there, returned to the apartment, and attempted to remove the blood. He admitted that he participated in search parties for his wife and described his actions as incredibly dishonest and disrespectful. Zarrius' testimony amounted to an admission to the 2 evidence tampering counts. It also gave jurors the defense explanation for conduct that prosecutors portrayed as calculated. Zarrius said he panicked because he could not remember the night. He feared that he might be blamed and assumed the worst. But this next bit is interesting. On the stand, while Zarrius said he didn't remember what happened that night, he somehow insisted that Saria had shot herself, even though he had told dispatch during the search that she was not suicidal. One of the most disturbing parts of Zarrius' testimony that I found was his admission that after allegedly finding his wife dead beside him, he went online and searched up pornography websites to find comfort. On cross-examination, the state pressed the limit of what Zarrius actually knew. They asked about the gun. Where did he find the gun? On the floor, on the table, in the bathroom? He admitted he did not remember. They pressed if he could not remember the critical period, the shooting. The prosecutor asked, how could he be certain he had not fired the gun? And that's when Zarrius could not give that assurance. Asked directly whether he knew if he had pulled the trigger, he answered, I do not. While on the stand, prosecutors played a recorded jailhouse call where Zarrius told his mom that he had a 20% chance at trial if he could work his magic on the stand to make the jury feel for him. Confronted with this recording, Zarrius said he simply meant he was going to tell the truth about his life. In closing, the state argued that the screenshots told the story about what happened after Saria and Zarrius returned home from partying that night. Saria discovered the sexual messages shortly after 2 in the morning, a gunshot was reported shortly before 3, and by midday, Zarrius Hildabrand was buying new bed sheets. The hours and days that followed, the prosecutor said, showed deliberate choices, deleting the screenshots, impersonating Saria by text, purchasing cleanup supplies, moving her body, reporting her missing, and joining her family's search. The defense, on the other hand, told jurors that the state had proved lies and concealment, but they had not proved murder beyond a reasonable doubt. The defense challenged the precision of the gunshot range evidence, emphasized the absence of test firing, and argued that the wound's slightly upward path and close range were consistent with a self-inflicted gunshot. The defense attorney told the jury that a lie told from fear was not itself proof of who pulled the trigger. I can't believe that school is right around the corner. But guess what? This year, I am feeling more prepared to take on the school year, and I think it's because I added the Skylight calendar to my family routine. Honestly, I realized that prior to my Skylight calendar arriving, the family command center was completely in my head. It was either in my head or on a Post-it note or on some sort of list somewhere in the house. But now, everything lives in one place, the Skylight calendar. Everything including my personal schedule, the kids' calendar, their routines and chores. And that right there, that's my girls' favorite feature. Yeah, it's called the Chores and Reward System. And they actually get excited to check off their routines because they can see what they've accomplished. It's helping them build independence, and I don't have to remind everyone 100 times what they have to do for the day. I also love that it doesn't just look like a random calendar. When it's not displaying your schedule, it doubles as a beautiful digital picture frame that you can display pictures on and even videos. At the end of the day, Skylight Calendar is designed to bring families together for more time. And that's what it's done for us. I definitely recommend checking it out. Plus, if in 4 months you're not 100% thrilled with your purchase, you can return it for a full refund. A full refund, no questions asked. Families are better when they're working together. And right now, Skylight is offering my listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendar by visiting myskylight.com/MMP. Go to myskylight.com/MMP for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That is myskylight.com/MMP. So y'all, what would jurors believe? Was Saria's death a result of her husband's deliberate plan? Was her death the result of a confrontation with her husband that ended in her death while he was too drunk to remember what he did? Or did Saria die at her own hand and Zarrius, a newly minted 21-year-old, just panicked and got rid of the evidence in fear that her death would be pinned on him? Oh my gosh. Well, deliberations lasted 10 hours and extended into the next day. Jurors returned to the courtroom with their verdict on June 25th, 2026. The job of a juror is not easy, but inside that Alaska courtroom, everyone held their breath as the verdict was read. As to the count of first-degree murder, not guilty. As to the count of second-degree murder, guilty. As to the 2 counts of tampering with evidence, guilty. And with that, Zarrius was acquitted of first-degree murder, but convicted of second-degree murder and tampering with evidence. Zarrius' sentence is scheduled for October 23, 2026, at the Nesbitt Courthouse in Anchorage. The Alaska Department of Law said that the second-degree murder conviction carries a sentencing range of 15 to 99 years. The final sentence will be imposed by the court, not the jury. At the end of his trial, Zarrius was 23 years old. In the end, Saria, even in her short 21 years of life, had lived a lifetime. She had served in 2 National Guard organizations, retrained as a combat medic, and she was in the process of using her military educational benefits to prepare for an education in medicine. Sadly, her life was cut short, but we can still remember Saria in the light, as a young soldier who worked hard, loved her family, showed up for her friends, and was moving toward a future she had chosen for herself. True Crime Army, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope that you feel enlightened by hearing how this case ended. I personally started Military Murder because I wanted to research cases and know how they concluded. We oftentimes hear the breaking news, but we're never privy to how they ended. And that's why I decided to start this show. So listen, if you like the show, please rate the show 5 stars wherever you listen. It really does help other people find the show. My sources for this episode include trial coverage by Court TV and Law and Crime Network, and press releases by the Alaska Department of Law, as well as reporting by Alaska News Source, AP News, the Alaska Public Media, and Stars and Stripes. Military Murder is a Mama Margot production. The music was created by Ty-Ops. Until next time, remember, you never really know what someone is capable of, so remain vigilant always. You have a fabulous week, and I'll keep digging to bring you another military murder story next time.
Mama's working on her podcast.
I don't want to.